today. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the past, present and future, and once again extend that respect to Indigenous and non-Indigenous people today. I would also like to acknowledge the fact that this is, always has been, acknowledged will be Aboriginal land. Thank you and enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks, Trey, for the acknowledgement. I would like to begin by thanking our parliamentary sponsors, Shiket Mosulmani and Trevor Khan, and your fantastic staff for all your help with this event. And also our co-hosts for all Reconciliation in Parliament events, New South Wales Reconciliation Council, and my fellow Anti-New South Wales committee members. I'd also really like to thank Weave, Youth Ambassador, for being here today, coordinating the photo booth, Nolene, Nadia and Trey. And if you haven't had a photo with them yet, please come over and do so before you leave. We all know the shameful statistics of young Aboriginal people in the criminal justice system. In New South Wales, over half the children in the justice system are Aboriginal. However, Aboriginal young people make up just 2.2% of the population. Aboriginal young people are 28 times more likely to be placed in juvenile detention than non-Aboriginal young people. It currently costs us over $237,000 a year per young person that's incarcerated, and costs are increasing. Incarceration comes at a high cost through exposure to harsh prison environments, marginalisation, ongoing poor health outcomes, and long-term impacts on employment opportunities. We cannot afford to continue on this path, both in fiscal terms as well as in the ongoing effects and costs. She's alright. Ongoing effects and costs of poor health outcomes and limited opportunities for young Aboriginal people as a result of incarceration. It's also a loss to our society. We lose lots of young people who could become really valuable contributors. There is a better way to frame policy, with spending focused away from incarceration and towards prevention, early intervention, and working with Aboriginal children at risk. And there is a better way to invest resources in a way that can address the disproportionate number of Aboriginal young people caught in a system that doesn't rehabilitate, doesn't deter, and doesn't keep communities safer or families together. We are fortunate enough to be hearing from two people who are experts in the field of justice reinvestment, Sarah Hopkins and Kalisha Morris. Sarah is Chair of Just Reinvest New South Wales and Managing Solicitor of Justice Projects at the Aboriginal Legal Service, ACT in New South Wales. Sarah is a criminal lawyer and specialist and has been working with the Burke community since 2012. She's the project director of Marangunka Justice Reinvestment Project in Burke. I would now like to ask Sarah to come and speak. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you all. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and pay my respect to elders and young people, elders past and present and future. And I'd also like to thank Trey for that welcome to country. In reconciliation in Parliament, it does seem, the idea seems particularly pertinent today on this kind of strangest of days in terms of the international political landscape. Meeting here together today, I hope that I can say that we in this room recognise that there are just some issues that should cut across party lines, and that addressing the overrepresentation of Aboriginal people, in particular Aboriginal children and young people in the prison system, is one of them. I think it's important to keep in mind too that while the numbers and the rate of Indigenous imprisonment are rising, and we've just heard those figures, that in terms of Indigenous offending over the last 15 years, what the most recent figures tell us is that both violent and property crime have been decreasing substantially, so somewhere in the vicinity of 35–40%. The overrepresentation of Aboriginal people in custody is a complex problem that requires a whole of government as well as a whole of community strategy. Justice reinvestment is about recognising the complexity and taking a common sense approach. What that means is providing access to data to communities so that they can make the right decisions and track progress. It means supporting local people to identify and implement local place-based solutions. And it means creating a fiscal framework that supports the long-term sustainability of what works. And the questions often asked, where does the money come from for a justice reinvestment approach? Often what will be involved on the ground with justice reinvestment is, in large part, is a realignment of what is already working on the ground. So what we need in a justice reinvestment approach, in particular from government, is the government to be flexible and responsive in terms of how the service sector operates. We need, ultimately, Treasury to quantify savings that result from the improved outcomes, and we need Treasury to develop mechanisms for reinvestment of those savings. Of course, I guess the question is, what if local solutions do require additional investment? I think we really need to pause here to consider the current plan for government spending in New South Wales. $3.8 billion on thousands, some say 7,000 new prison beds over the next 4 years. The figure dwarfing any plans for investment in early intervention, crime prevention or diversionary programs. Now, is there, I think we have to ask, the opportunity now to look at ways to curb that rising prison population? So to curb that need for all those thousands of new prison beds in the short, the medium and the long term, and to earmark a proportion of those savings, a proportion of the savings of the $3.8 billion towards early intervention, crime prevention and diversion. So strategies that we know are proven to have a far greater impact in reducing recidivism than a prison stint. In terms of what's happening with justice reinvestment in Bourke, I'll spend a short time just talking about that. So if we can go back to 2012, we, Just Reinvest, was talking to the New South Wales government about what a justice reinvestment approach would look like in New South Wales. And the government said, well, show us that it works. And we pointed to a number of examples across the United States. Let's not talk about the United States today. But the government said, no, show us that it works here in Australia. And of course, it wasn't happening anywhere in Australia. And it was almost coincidentally at that time that Alastair Ferguson, the chair of the Working Party in Bourke, contacted Just Reinvest with the question, I've heard about this justice reinvestment thing. Is it something that could help us, help our children and young people find ways out of the criminal justice system and build better pathways for them? So Mick Gooder, the then Social Justice Commissioner, and myself visited Bourke, and ultimately a justice reinvestment trial was established there. What it looks like on the ground, so initially obviously is the engagement and planning stage, and that involves engagement with all sectors, all agencies, organisations, individuals that impact on the life of children and young people in Bourke. So all the way from representatives from the Shire Council to families to the police. So police have played a really important part in the Justice Reinvestment project in Bourke. Once we had, though, the key groups and individuals at the table, the first question in a justice reinvestment approach is, what information do you need to make better decisions? So what sort of data can we collect for you? And the community were really clear and unanimous that they really wanted to see the whole picture in terms of what was happening in the lives of children and young people in Bourke. So all the way from birth, even prenatal, to the time when young people are trying to find a job, into their 20s. So we embarked on that